As you know, I usually watch episodes of New Trek so you don't have to, and generally speaking, the relatively young series, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, has been derivative, safe, and uninspiring, but it hasn't been bad, which is a huge step up from the truly awful Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard. But episode 4 of Strange New Worlds is a whole other ballgame. The episode is entitled Memento Mori, and it focuses primarily on the character of La'an, so I wasn't looking forward to this episode because I genuinely don't like her character, but boy was I in for a surprise. The episode has its problems, and I will get to those in a moment, but overall, I mean absolutely no exaggeration here, and the title is not clickbait. This was the best episode of Star Trek I've watched since Enterprise ended in 2005. This was proper, good, solid, well-written and intelligent science fiction with a real sense of drama, suspense, excitement and intrigue. The story held my attention. The stakes felt high. I was interested in finding out how the crew were going to get out of the situation they found themselves in. New Trek has finally produced a quality episode of Star Trek, and in just 4 episodes, Strange New Worlds has achieved what Star Trek Picard could not in 2 years, and Discovery could not in 4 years. As easy as it has been to rag on the poor quality of New Trek in recent years, I won't bash a show for the sake of it, and if they produce a quality episode, I'm going to offer praise where it is due. In the case of Memento Mori, praise is most certainly due. This is a tense submarine space battle episode that blends strong character moments, makes good use of the entire cast, and provides us with a faceless villain with a real sense of dread and foreboding. Sometimes less is more. The Gorn are the enemy in this story, and to try to preserve continuity, we don't actually see them on screen. This actually works in the episode's favor, because what they're thinking throughout the battle is left up to the imagination of the audience. We learn of their cold, vicious brutality only through La'an's account of them and through the testimonies of the survivors of Phoenix 3. Pike and the crew of the Enterprise have to fight blind in a gas giant against an enemy they can't communicate with, and one they must learn to understand through their actions. Now, this isn't really like Balance of Terror or The Wrath of Khan, because we don't get to see the battle from the enemy's perspective, and in this episode, I think that mystery is one of its strengths. Now, before I get into the plot and heap any further praise on the episode, firstly, I will get the stuff I didn't like out of the way. La'an is, as I've said before, an unlikable, bitter, prickly character, tortured, on edge, tightly wound, and too much of a hard ass to be a believable Starfleet graduate. Typical New Trek stuff. Right? You have to be able to work in a team with other people in order to excel in Starfleet. How else can you work on a starship? So once again, we have her openly sniping with Spock on the bridge. She's again barking orders at the captain, even on the bridge, when she yells at him that it's the Gorn. And she also shouts, "Raise shields now." She did this in the first episode as well. But it doesn't come across as assertive. It just comes across as totally inappropriate and like a child throwing a tantrum. Pike finally has to take her aside and tell her to cool it with the angst and the negativity. I should also call out Ortegas once again in this episode. The borderline insubordination and the inappropriate backtalk is just out of hand sometimes. Pike gives her an order to fly into the brown dwarf gas giant, and she says, "Full impulse into the giant gas cloud of death. Why not?" This is not professional behavior from a military officer serving within earshot of her superior. This is openly and verbally making a mockery and undermining the captain's orders. How does she expect to be perceived by other bridge officers? She's a senior officer serving on the crew, and she has to set an example, not make people feel much worse by making inappropriate quips and making people feel terrified at the prospect of flying into the gas giant. In the Star Trek Voyager episode, The Cloud, they fly into a nebula, and Kim remarks how he's never seen anything like it. It actually seems pretty innocuous, to be honest. But Tuvok quietly communicates with him through their communicators across the bridge, and he says, Tuvok to Kim. Mr. Kim, that is a comment we prefer not to hear from a senior officer on the bridge. It makes the junior officers nervous. And what Kim said was mild by comparison to what Ortega said. Now, I know people will possibly defend her here, saying, lighten up, it's just supposed to be some comic relief. But this isn't the Orville. This isn't a parody. It's not a comedy series. Either authority, professionalism, and the chain of command are respected or they're not. And her emotions and fear should be kept in check and not expressed in public to be overheard by junior officers who will be made to feel uncertain and terrified by her remarks. Anyway, I will also overlook yet more contemporary millennial colloquialisms, such as Uhura saying, Uhura for the win. Thankfully, we had a strong performance from Bruce Horvath, and Hemmer has finally shone through in this episode. He was given some real dynamism and likability and depth. He's already fast becoming a fan favourite for many people. I am still concerned, however, about New Trek's propensity for characters to be too quick to anger. We saw that as far back as Star Trek 2009 and Star Trek Into Darkness, with Spock flying off the handle and going postal on a couple of occasions. Hopefully that's a pattern that's now broken. In watching modern television, one has to allow for certain wince-inducing moments, but generally speaking, in this case, such weaknesses did not detract from what was otherwise a strong episode of Star Trek. We're going to talk more about Memento Mori right after this. Before we go very much further, it's time now for a word from our partner for this video, NordVPN, a virtual private network that will keep you secure and safe online. Your activity and personal information on the internet these days is becoming increasingly more visible to others, and for that reason, you need to take steps to protect your data and privacy. NordVPN provides you with next-generation security features that allows you to do just that. It provides advanced protection against cyber attacks, malware, and trackers, and lets you block intrusive ads so that you are in full control of your web browsing experience. In addition to that, you can protect all of your devices on a single subscription. Nord works on Mac, PC, Linux, iOS, Android, and even your Wi-Fi router. Some VPNs really slow down your connection, but not Nord. Whatever you're doing, whether it's watching videos, streaming music, doing video calls, or playing video games, Nord's 5,200 plus super fast servers and groundbreaking Nord Links protocol mean that there's no bandwidth limits to worry about, just a robust, secure, and really fast connection. And their no logs policy means that there's no record of your web browsing history for third parties to see. You can hide your IP address with just a few clicks and have peace of mind while online, and in addition, Nord offers dedicated technical and customer support with a knowledgeable and friendly staff. Use my link in the description box and download Nord today. And if you make use of the promo code ComputingForever, you'll get 1 month for free when buying the 2-year plan. Okay, so welcome back. So, for a general overview of the plot, the Enterprise crew is dispatched to Phoenix 3 to deliver an atmospheric processor. The Federation is also celebrating their Remembrance Day, when they pay tribute to those who have lost their lives in the service of Starfleet. But upon arrival at the colony, they find it abandoned. There's been signs of an attack and some kind of bloody massacre, but the place is abandoned. In orbit, the Enterprise retrieves the colonists who escaped the attack from a hostile but unknown and unseen attacker, but one of the children saw what she described as monsters, and from that description, La'an deduces that it's the Gorn. Throughout the episode, La'an has visions of her brother during the Gorn attack that she experienced as a child. There's a secondary story between Hemmer and Uhura in the main cargo bay, as they work to get the processor for the warp drive online. Hemmer is injured, so he has to instruct Uhura to do the work. There's some decent character moments here, especially for Hemmer, who gets a little more fleshed out in terms of his motivations and backstory. Most of the episode focuses on the submarine-style battle between the Enterprise and its pursuer, the highly aggressive Gorn ships, as Pike is forced to hide the ship inside a gas giant, which is tethered to a black hole. So it's a real battle of wits. Spock points out that they could be crushed inside the brown dwarf, and once they're inside, communications, sensors, and shields will be largely inoperative. But Pike maintains that it's sauce for the goose, sauce for the gander. The Gorn will have to deal with the same limitations. They devise a plan to track the Gorn by detecting the oscillation the ships make inside the atmosphere of the gas giant through the navigation system. The oscillation is converted into rotational motions by Coriolis forces, so movement can be triangulated to find the Gorn ship. As Pike points out, it's like turning a compass into a radar. They drop a torpedo on the Gorn ship manually and they destroy it, but celebrations are cut short as there's a sting in the tail. The explosion helped 3 additional Gorn vessels to pinpoint the Enterprise location, and now they have an even larger mothership to deal with. Pike is forced to go deeper into the brown dwarf, and you get a real sense of the peril that the Enterprise is in. Will the hull stand up to the forces? For the first time in quite a while on Star Trek, the Enterprise once again feels like another character on the show, which is exactly how it should be. 1 Gorn vessel is destroyed under the atmospheric pressure of the gas giant. Pike's excellent command tactics exploited the weakness of Gorn psychology. They are a little too relentless when pursuing their prey. Meantime, the brown dwarf they're hiding inside is being sucked into the black hole. Spock and La'an take a shuttle to find the 2 remaining Gorn ships and observe them flashing some kind of light beams at each other. La'an has seen these before. So, she has to do a mind meld with Spock to find the answers. Again, this is the whole past character trauma thing that New Trek likes to do a little too much of, but in this case it does serve the story in a useful manner. She flashes back to her memories of being on a Gorn breeding planet on the run from the Gorn with her brother. She remembers that the light flashing is a code, communication between the 2 ships. Her brother showed her how to read the code. Anyway, before the mind meld ends, Spock accidentally reveals some personal memories to La'an. The memory of his quote-unquote sister. Yes, we unfortunately get some Michael Burnham voiceover here. Oh well, no episode is perfect, I suppose. La'an instructs Spock to modulate the shuttle's phasers, and she uses this to send a false message between the Gorn ships that humans boarded and took over one of the ships, and sure enough, 1 Gorn vessel destroys the other. To get past the last Gorn vessel, they have to use gravitational redshift by slingshotting around the black hole. They jettison the AP-350 in the cargo bay as a decoy. It makes for a tense and solid action set-piece conclusion with some excellent CGI and wonderfully constructed dramatic space shots. Very operatic, very cinematic, I would say. The Gorn take the bait and the Enterprise gets away. The episode ends on a very noble and poignant note, paying tribute to those who gave their lives and the sacrifices made so they could survive. In addition, I would say that this conclusion at least gives La'an's story arc with the Gorn some degree of useful development for the character, because she has now faced off against them and won, and that has got to help move her past some of her childhood trauma. I would say that as hard as each individual crew member worked to make this possible, largely the buck stops with the captain. Captain Christopher Pike is only as good as the crew he commands, and he manages to extract the best out of all of them, inspiring them to survive by sheer belief in each other and in the Enterprise. The musical score is also fantastic in this episode, and the performances of the actors are really solid. It's a very good cast. I don't know what this first season of Strange New Worlds will shape up to be, but I can say this: at least I can confidently recommend that you watch this episode. Memento Mori is at last the modern Star Trek episode you've been waiting for.